And to another part of the country now, displaced flood victims in Mthatha have been evicted from the B&Bs in which they were being temporarily accommodated. And they'll now be sent back to community halls because the contract has ended. Now, promises of temporary shelter for the victims have thus far fallen short, although the Eastern Cape government says construction of houses is underway. Newzroom Afrika's Liyema Vumisa is live and joins us for more on this story now. Good morning, Liyema. Where is the Eastern Cape government failing?
A very good morning to you, Mthatha, and of course to Newzroom Afrika viewers. As you can see the visuals here, we are in the OR Tambo Hall right here in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. That is, of course, under the stewardship of the Eastern Cape government. And as you rightfully pointed out, the Eastern Cape government is adamant that they are still well on track as far as the relief efforts are concerned following that devastating floods that ravaged many parts of the Eastern Cape, particularly here in Mthatha. Now, what we find contrary to that is that the displaced flood victims, on the other hand, do not really feel that the government right here in the Eastern Cape is doing appropriate and even comprehensive relief efforts that they so require. Now, we are in this hall, as you rightfully pointed out in your intro there, that this is a place that the flood victims have been accommodated at. You'd understand then that just a week before, they were housed in local B&Bs, accommodation houses and apartments in and around Mthatha, only for a temporary period of time, following the Eastern Cape government and also the local municipality trying to find shelter then that is going to be supplied by the Human Settlements Department. The promised date was the 31st of July. Now, that has since passed, and unfortunately the contract from those local B&Bs has since ended. Now, they have found themselves, the displaced flood victims, yet again being displaced. They were kicked out of those local accommodation areas and sent back to community halls instead of the promised temporary shelters. Now, what you understand is the common sentiment around all of these flood victims is that when they were kicked out, they were under the impression then that they're going to be sent to the temporary shelters in land that has already been identified by the local municipality here, that is King Sabata municipality. If you'd recall, just 2 weeks ago, Mthatha, we were accompanying the Land Reform and Rural Development Minister Nyonzo, together with the king of the Abatembo Kingdom, King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo, where they were discussing land issues and land that ought to be identified to accommodate these flood victims. That has since been concluded. We understand then that following that, by this day, these flood victims have in fact or rather were supposed to have been housed. If you look at the visuals that you can see right now from your screen, this is indeed a community in despair. Some of them say they don't have any privacy anymore. As you can see, they've just woken up right now. They can barely be able to even look after themselves. You can understand then that there's not enough bathrooms to accommodate all of these people, although there are, bathroom areas that we did see when we entered this hall. Now, what we understand, Mthatha, is that these people are still longing for a normal life that they had before the floods ravaged most of their homes. They don't have anywhere to go. All they say is that they are pleading with the local municipality together with the Eastern Cape government to be able to get shelter, at least to get back then and build from what they had lost. You can see for yourself, there's even children here. You can imagine then what that must be doing psychologically to them, particularly because they have to go to school and keep a normal life with their peers. But unfortunately, that is not happening. So as it currently stands, the local municipality, that is King Sabata Talingebo, together with, the Eastern Cape government, they did send out a statement, I think 2 days from now, mentioning, of course, that the construction of those temporary units is already underway. And matter of fact, my colleague and I, it must have been yesterday, we were driving around town to these various lands that have been identified for those units to be built. We did see some sort of movement, but again, going back to the promise, a promise was made that already by August, these flood victims should already be staying in those temporary units, let alone then, Michelle, the matter of permanent housing, because after these temporary units, there still needs to be permanent housing that ought to be also provided by the government.